I declare bankruptcy!
Over 50% of businesses fail after 5 years. Why is that? Hi, my name is Nick McLean with 4 Pillars Investors, and we work with a lot of companies in the lower middle market. And even though they're not facing some of those issues like no marketing plan or no business plan, there are some issues that we see holding these companies back. Even though a business owner might not have created his business with the goal of selling it in the future, there are still these common mistakes that are holding the business back, not only from a high valuation, but also just holding it back from a business health perspective. Stay tuned as I talk about the 3 biggest mistakes that are hurting businesses and impacting their ability to sell at some point in the future. First off, the 3 mistakes that I'm going to talk about today certainly do have an impact on valuation and also an ability to sell your business. But it's much more than that. Really, these mistakes are impacting the actual health of the business. Our view at 4 Pillars is we want to manage our businesses such that they are in a position to sell. Not because we're always looking to sell them. You know, our first business we've owned for almost 10 years now, and we're in no hurry to sell that. However, our perspective or philosophy is that if we're creating a business that has a lot of value to other people, then it's probably pretty healthy itself. So without further ado, I'll jump into the first mistake that I see business owners making, and that is coasting. What do I mean by coasting? Well, first, let's look at the average demographic of the business owners that we typically talk to. You know, at least 50s, probably 60s, 70s, sometimes even in their 80s. You know, at that age, it's very easy to see that ambitious growth is just not as interesting as it was whenever the company was just getting started or 10, 20, 30 years earlier in a person's career. I understand that. So the desire to grow is not there, that ambition is not there. However, there's a second side to that coin, and that other side to that coin is, I don't care about your ambition. My mindset is, if you're not growing, you're dying. So even though you might not pursue growth for your own ambition, I think you need to pursue growth to ensure the health and vitality of your business. So often we see business owners think that, oh, well, I've got to 20 million of revenue. That's a comfortable level. I don't want to grow anymore. I don't really want to buy any more equipment, et cetera, et cetera. You know, that's the business owner's right to make that decision, no question. However, what we have found is that even though the business owner feels like that's a safe option, it's actually introducing risk. Another component of this is that we see business owners deferring CapEx or not making the necessary investments in the business to ensure its health. I get it. You know, get to a certain point in your business, you think, I'm tired of investing in this business. I'm at a point where I'm ready to start extracting cash from the business instead of the other way around. Again, that's every business owner's right to extract as much cash as they want from the business, provided it's within the business. However, hard to make an argument that that is maintaining the health or vitality of the business. You know, we all have ideas of what the future will bring, and maybe we think that, oh, well, we want to retire in 5 years or 10 years or 1 year. But I'll tell you, the one thing that I'm good at is thinking that I know where I will be in 5 years and being absolutely wrong. I don't know that my 5-year plan has ever been anywhere near accurate. So maybe you're better at creating 5-year plans than I am. And if you are, good for you. Maybe I can take some tips from you. However, if you're in a similar boat as I am, that it's hard for you to predict where you'll be in 5 years, I think that makes a strong argument for focusing on doing everything you can to make your business as strong and as valuable to an outside party as you can. If you do that, not only are you going to have a business that is ready to sell when you are ready, you're also just going to have a better business. You're going to have a better environment for your employees. And it's just hard for me to think that it's not going to be a better situation all the way around. The other mistake I see business owners making is being too involved in the business. So often I hear business owners say, oh yeah, the team doesn't need me. I don't really spend much time here, blah, blah, blah. Well, you get into more discussions and it's like, well, who manages that relationship? Well, Joe really handles that, but before we make our final quote or final presentation, I'll review it and have a discussion with the customer or something along those lines. In essence, what I'm trying to say is that there's this position that the owner's making a case that he's not too involved, and whether or not he's just trying to fool us or he really believes that he's not too involved, from the outsider's perspective, it still seems like the business owner is very involved. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in circumstances where we have a business owner that would like to remain in that role of president or CEO post-close. Zero reason why that person shouldn't be very involved in the business. I mean, come on, if they're president or CEO, they should be very involved in the business. However, another thing that we see though is that business owners do a great job of getting their business to a certain level. And once they get it to that level, it requires a different type of person to take it from that level to the next. I mean, come on, let's be honest. A lot of business owners are entrepreneurs themselves. And what I hear many entrepreneurs say is that I'm good at starting businesses. I'm not good at taking a mature business and taking it to the next level. Those are the entrepreneurs that are really objective and really are introspective and have looked at the situation to determine what is best for their business and where their skills lie. However, there's another group of business owners that we see commonly as well and don't realize that they're really holding back the business. In those circumstances, it would be far better if they actually do start removing themselves. Put in a president or CEO that has experience growing a company with, 50 million revenues and taking it to 250 million. Again, this isn't a criticism on business owners that they're not smart or whatever. It's a very different type of person that takes a company from 50 million to 250 than it is that takes a company from 0 to 50. I'll be the first one to admit, I feel like I would be much better at the 0 to 50 range than the 50 to 250. I'm not the type of person that is great about following processes and bureaucracy and what I would call red tape. That's what I think has to happen as you grow to that $250 million revenue mark. I don't like all that structure. And for that reason, I would definitely not be the person that should be in charge as you try to grow it to that level. So I guess my encouragement to business owners is really lean into your strengths, and not only lean into your strengths, lean into what you like the best. Because I think a lot of business owners enjoy the size of business they have and would enjoy it less as the company takes that next step in their evolution, that next step in their growth. The third mistake that I see business owners making was actually discussed in our video on the status quo bias. It is something called the endowment effect. Now, the endowment effect typically refers to assets that you own. However, I think it can be looked at more broadly. So let me explain. In its most base form, the endowment effect says that you will value something that you own more highly than an identical item that you do not own. So as it relates to businesses, this shows up very apparently in the conversations between a buyer and seller of a business. As the seller, the current owner, you're going to value your business more highly than a potential buyer because of the endowment effect. So I think that's the base level, if you will. However, as it relates here, I think you can take a much more expansive view of this endowment effect. Let's ignore the conversations or negotiations between a buyer and seller, and let's just assume for a moment that the business owner has no intentions to sell for the foreseeable future. Well, the endowment effect is still at play here. It might show up in terms of the value that the business owner places on the customer relationships, for example. Sometimes we talk to business owners who have 50, 60, 70% customer concentration, and they say, listen guys, I've got a great relationship with this customer. They are not going anywhere. We are good to go. You know what? That might be true, it might be false. But even so, even if that customer is not going anywhere, what if their plant has a catastrophe? What if they're offline for 3, 4, 6 months? Yeah, the customer didn't go with another supplier, but your business is still in a tough position because of that catastrophe. Or, it doesn't even have to be a catastrophe. What if they just, choose to retool their product line and takes them down for a few months or whatever? If you have customer concentration that high, then it is going to be catastrophic to your business, even though the relationship is maintained. Now, I mentioned that example in the context of having overly high customer concentration, but it really relates to any type of relationship, any type of component or feature of your business. So for example, extending the endowment effect, you might think that your position in this industry is very strong because of your views of the industry, where it's going, et cetera, et cetera. So put differently, you might think more highly about industry XYZ because you own a part of that industry, even though outsiders might take a slightly different view. So what is the takeaway? How has this become actionable? I guess how it becomes actionable is, I think I would encourage business owners to really think about how their customer relationships, how their competitive position in their industry, in their market, et cetera, all these things. How would these things look from an outsider's perspective? How would they value this customer relationship I have? How would they view our competitive position vis-a-vis our competitors? Really run the gamut in terms of how your business competes, how your business really exists, and look at it from an outsider's perspective. If you're really objective, then there are certainly going to be areas where you might say to yourself, I used to think that a buyer might value that very highly, but after this process, maybe not. I shared this example in the status quo bias video that we did, but I think it makes sense to share it here. A great example that we saw endowment effect was with a customer relationship that one of our sellers had. He also committed the first mistake of coasting. He got to a certain level, didn't want to buy any more equipment, felt like he did not have to grow with his customer, even though his customer wanted him to. Not only did, again, he make that mistake of coasting, but also the endowment effect, because he valued that customer relationship as being stronger than it actually was. Once we got in there, what we found is that this customer was kind of not being two-faced, but wasn't really being genuine with the seller about how negative they viewed his decision not to grow with them. They were actually trying to find alternative suppliers, which would have really hurt our business. Luckily, my partner was able to salvage that relationship, and it's stronger than ever now. But that's a good example of not only the mistake of coasting, but how the endowment effect affected this business owner's value that he was placing on certain customer relationships. So you've heard about the 3 mistakes, and I want to re-emphasize again that these can be taken in the context of how to create a business that is going to be more valuable to a buyer. However, if you only look at it in that context, then I think you're missing at least part of the point. I think if you coast, I think that if you are too involved in your business, and only you can decide what the definition of too involved is. And also, if you value the components of your business more highly than perhaps an outsider would, I think you run the risk of creating a business that is not as healthy as it could be. Now, I've shared what I think 3 mistakes are of businesses in the 20 million of revenue to maybe 150 to 200 million revenue range. What do you think? Do you see businesses making these mistakes? As a business owner, have you ever been guilty of any of these mistakes? And also, what have I missed? Are there 2 others that are even bigger than the 3 I missed? Love to hear from you. Check out the Calendly link below. If leaving a comment isn't your thing, set up a call with me, and I would love to talk about not only mistakes that you see, but just about your business, how great you're doing at running it, and perhaps where you see it going after you choose to exit.